Hello, hello. I hope that you are all well and welcome once again to our daily encounters talking about Portuguese language and Portuguese culture. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for coming here and taking a daily hour, a daily 30 minutes of your life every day at the end of the day to join us and discuss about these wonderful opportunities of learning that are before you, and all of these lessons and all of these amount of copy and content that is being given to you. Of course, I would appreciate all your comments. We sometimes can't help to have like people who take advantage of our channels for their own benefits, so we just have to ignore. So it looks like yesterday we had like a very interesting character from Brazil that tried to take a chance and sell bitcoins. My friend, welcome you not to sell bitcoins. If you really want to sell bitcoins, this is not your place. But if you want to know more about the Portuguese culture and background, you're more than welcome. So every day, 4:30 in the afternoon, Southern African time, and I am so looking forward for this exciting news. And we have started on Saturday talking about, and this is an empiric knowledge. So we're going to grow like little blocks of Lego on top and on top and on top of each learning. So if you only started to watch us today regarding these themes, please go back either on our Facebook or YouTube pages. Go back to Saturday the 16th and start with the Celt influence into Portuguese language and culture, and then followed by the session of the 17th of January, which we talk about the Roman Portugal, and then you will be fully enforced to speak and to understand what we are talking about, the Germanic Portugal today. And what is this about the Germanic Portugal? All right, so we thought and we work that the weakening of the Roman Empire enabled various Teutonic peoples to invade Gaul or Gallia. They eventually crossed the Pyrenees and started Iberia, which is today the Iberia Peninsula. The Suevi or Swabians, who mostly stayed in the northwest, made Bracara Augusta, now the Portuguese city of Braga, their capital. These new German rulers did not altogether sweep away from Roman civilization, which they had learned to admire, and they've learned actually to admire, and styles of dress remain different. The Germanic groups wore their hair long, while the Romans clipped theirs. However, they blended easily with the Romans as well as with the Celts, whose culture was not too different from theirs. The great contribution of the Swabians was in the use of the land and the introduction of the quadrangular plough instead of the Celts double plough with the cows and the mules. They introduced the quadrangular plough. They preferred to settle in the north and northwest of Iberia, which are areas that had a climate more suitable to their crops. Remember, the Celts were more eager to the latifúndio and warmer lands and larger plains of the south, like Alentejo. Other Germanic groups, such as the Vandals and Alans, also crossed the Pyrenees and spread to the western edge of the peninsula. The Alans, at the time the strongest of the tribes, took a large area in the center and south, approximately the area of Roman Lusitania. So the Luso-Romans offered no effective opposition to their settlement. And the Goths were a nomadic Germanic people who fought against Roman rule in the late 300s and early 400s after Christ, helping to bring about the downfall of the Roman Empire, which had controlled much of the Europe for centuries. And here, curiously enough, is also where we see the beginnings of the schools of Mary Magdalene and the Cathars as well. The ascendancy of the Goths is said to have marked the beginning of the medieval period in Europe. The Visigoths were the name given to the western tribes of Goths, so Godos and Visigodos, while those in the east were referred to as Ostrogoths. Ancestors of the Visigoths mounted a successful invasion of the Roman Empire, beginning in 375, and ultimately they defeated them in the Battle of Adrianople in, is said, 378 after Jesus. And after forcing the Romans from much of the European continent, the Goths government, they managed like a large swath of territory from the present day Germany to the Danube, to the Danubium or Rio, to the river Danube, and to the river Don in Eastern Europe, and from the Black Sea in the south up to the Baltic Sea in the north, where today the Nordic countries sit, like Finland and Lithuania and Estonia. Following the sack of Rome in 410 after Christ, after Jesus, the Visigoths' influence extended from the Iberian Peninsula to the present-day Portugal and Spain. And that is why I have given a little map, which I'm going to try to share my screen, and I'll put here a banner. That you will now be able to good, a little bit of geographic setting. So as they were moving on the way to Eastern Europe, the Visigoths tribe of Goths are believed to be descendants of an earlier group of Goths called the Threvingil. The Threvingil were the Gothic tribe that first invaded the Roman Empire in 366 or 378. And they were the ones that actually defeated the Romans at Adrianople. And that is why it's called the Alaric the First movement. So this was a big change from the over almost 1,000 years of Roman rule. So with their primary rivals for European power defeated, the Alaric and the Visigoths established their kingdom in the region of Gallia, present-day southern France. initially as an outfitting nation of the Roman Empire before expanding their territory to include the areas they are now known as Spain and Portugal, taking these lands by force from the Suebi and the Vandals in the early 500s. And that is why from these people we today still use the word vandalism, to vandalize. It comes from the Vandals, which is pure destruction for no purpose or no goal. Early on, they maintained positive relations with Romans, receiving protection from the historic empire. They, however, had two groups that split. They soon fell out, and the Visigoths assumed full governance of their kingdom in the middle of the 400s, like 475, under King the era Euric or Eurico. And today, still in Portugal, many men are called Eurico. In fact, Visigoths maintained a presence of the Iberian Peninsula, ending their nomadic ways from the mid-400s through the early 700s, when they were defeated by an invading force of African Moors. The region was known as the Visigothic Kingdom. Now, Godos, Visigodos e Ostrogodos. Ostrogodos relate to today's Austria. Okay, the Visigodos relate to today Estonia, Finland, Sweden, Norway. The Godos relate to the French, the Flemish. The Ostrogoths or Eastern Goths or Gothicus lived in the area near the Black Sea, modern-day Romania, Ukraine, and Russia. Like Goths elsewhere, the Ostrogoths made frequent incursions into Roman territory until they owned their territories, and their own territories were invaded by the Huns or Hunus. From further east, but after the death of Attila, which also in Portugal we still use this name, Attila, especially in Brazil, the Ostrogoths were free to expand into Roman lands. So under the leadership of Theodoric or Theodorico, Eurico and Theodorico the Great, the Ostrogoths successfully dominated the rulers of the Italian peninsula, expanding their territories from the Black Sea into Italy and further west. But after a series of military campaigns against the Byzantine Emperor Justinian and other rivals, the Ostrogoths largely faded from history. And this is where the northern Africa and the northern people, and also Cartagena and Constantinople, and they started being very visual. And what today is Istanbul, and also from Tunisia as well. Visigothic Code. Okay. In 1643, the Visigothic king Shinda ordered the writing of the so-called Visigothic Code, or Law of the Visigoths. Now, this is the second law after the Roman law that is imposed into what today is Portugal. These laws were later expanded under this king's son, which was Requeswint, which later maybe already 15, 20 years later. So notably, the Visigoth Code applied equally to the conquering Goths and the general population of the kingdom, most of whom had Roman roots and had lived previously under the Roman laws. So it effectively ended the differentiation between the Goth and the Roman people in the eyes of the law. So the all of this became one universal law. So all of those residing within the Visigoth kingdom were considered Hispani. The term Hispani is a precursor to the present day term Hispanic, which is used to describe people of Spanish origin. The Visigothic Code also combined elements of the Roman, Catholic, and Germanic tribal law, establishing rules for marriage, the inheritance of property, and interestingly, the code was remarkably progressive with regards to the right of women who were allowed to inherit property and marriage assets independently, separate from their husbands and or male relatives. So under the code, women could also represent themselves in legal proceedings and arrange their own marriages. Quite progressive, the Visigoths, right? Some elements of the Visigothic Code endured long after the demise of the kingdom. So historians have found references of the code in monastic charters drafted under the Kingdom of Galicia in the 10th century, as late as the 10th century. So it's known to have formed the basis of the laws established by the Moors following their conquering of the kingdom in the early 700s. So under the rule of the Moors, Christians were allowed to live under their own laws, provided they didn't conflict with those of the conquering Africans. So this echoes many of the principles of the Visigothic Code. A Catalan translation of the original Visigothic Code dates back to 1050 and is amongst the oldest texts in the language spoken in the region around present-day Barcelona. And now you can ask me, okay, Ines, so what is this legacy of the Visigoths and where can we see? Is it only written? Is it only in Spain? Is it also in Portugal? Okay, we are here to speak about what impacted on current Portuguese people, Portuguese culture, and Portuguese language. Okay, so prior to their own downfall, the Visigoths created a legacy that survives to some degree even today. For example, the Visigoths, like most Gothic tribes, gradually converted from German paganism to Christianity over the course of the 5th and 6th centuries. However, they initially adopted the Adrianist form of the religion as opposed to the Nicene or Catholic form practiced by most of Rome. Thus, the Romans considered the Christian Visigoths to be heretics until they finally converted to Catholicism in the 7th century. Many Catholic churches built by the Visigoths in Spain and Portugal survive to this day, including Santa Maria de Melque in present-day Toledo, Spain. Also, the Visigoths also left their mark by establishing the Visigothic Code as a framework for the drafting of national laws and of what is today constitution. So where can we see Germanic Portugal? Okay. The Visigoths built a few temples, some of which have been restored over the centuries. Examples include São João, the São João Church near Nazaré, the São Pedro de Balsemão Chapel in Lamego, the Igreja de Santo Amaro, also serving as part of the Visigothic Museum in Beja, and the Byzantine-style chapel of São Frutuoso, close to Braga, in the north of Portugal. The Visigoths also rebuilt the Roman town of Idanha Velha, near Castelo Branco, right in the interior, and parts of its cathedral date also from this time. Also, many of the 92 villages of the Montezinho Natural Park in Trás-os-Montes province, right in the top interior province, still bear distinctively Germanic names, such as Fresulfe, Semande, memorials to the Visigoths who founded them. And I hope that you have found it very interesting. Please feel free to share it with your colleagues, with your friends, with your family. And if you're finding it a little bit to cope on all of this information that we spoke today, please go back, remember to go back and to listen from the 16th of January from the Celt influence in Portuguese language, and then the 17th of January session, which touched on the following, which was the Roman Portugal, and then review today's session with the Germanic Portugal. You will be then very well prepared for tomorrow's session, 4:30 in the afternoon, Southern African time, about the Moors and Moorish Portugal. I hope that you are excited for another one of these sessions. I'm surely am, and I'm looking forward to be with you tomorrow. So please, if you're finding it interesting, please put a like or subscribe to our channel if you are watching us through YouTube, and allow us to grow our community. We truly appreciate, and let us know in your comments how and recommendations or questions that you might have. I hope to see you tomorrow, same time, 4:30 in the afternoon, Southern African time. Take care. Bye-bye.